welcome to Leader Talk, the CNN-IBN special where we get icons from the world of corporate and sports to share their leadership mantras for the future. Today we are joined by two iconic figures, legends in their lifetime. Great privilege to be joined by Ratan Tata, former chairman of Tata Sons, and Kapil Dev, former captain, World Cup winning captain of the Indian team. Privileged, gentlemen, to have both of you on Leader Talk. Both of you come from very diverse and different backgrounds, but have been enormously successful. Let me start with you, Mr. Tata. What does that name Tata mean? It's perhaps the most enduring brand name in a sense in this country. What for you does the Tata brand name signify?
You know, to me it has always signified doing business in a particular ethical manner with values and being fair to the customer, to the stakeholders in the business. I think it's summed up in the brand of trust. Has been built over 100 years, which I tried hard to uphold.
You know, the reason I'm asking you this is that when you walked into Bombay House, let's say for the first time as chairman of Tata Sons, were you conscious that you were having to take forward the legacy from Jamshedji to JRD? Was that legacy a burden, or was that in a sense something that was almost a challenge for you?
It was not a burden, it was not a challenge. It was in fact a goalpost that you always saw in front of you to uphold.
So they were inspirational figures. You yes, felt that you were inspired by them.
I never had for a moment a thought of changing it. It was how do you retain it, how do you reinforce it, how do you ensure that you don't have pockets of aberrations. I think it was, to me, a very inspiring mantra that I never for a minute felt that I had to veer away from.
Kapil Dev, in a very different way, you had no real legacy to fall back upon. You know, India hadn't produced a great fast bowler since the post-independence era. You were the first cricketer from Haryana to make it so big. In a sense, you were a true trendsetter. Did that make it easier? The fact that you didn't have any JRD, Jamshedji, Tata-like figure to follow, you had to chart your own path.
I think I never thought in that sense. It's just too young to just enjoy the sports and to play the game. Yes, later on when people start talking, people like you start comparing and start talking, you start feeling, yeah, it's something different happened. But when you are 18 years old, I don't think so I ever thought about that, or I could ever imagine this is what I'm going to do, or I have done that.
You know, the reason I'm asking you this is because when you started off in the late 70s, you were perhaps the first small town. I mean, Chandigarh was then a small town, first small town hero in the world of cricket. Today you have many, from Mahendra Singh Dhoni to many others who've come from, you know, small town India. At that time, did you ever feel overawed or inferior in any way when you first came into that Indian dressing room because you were not from Mumbai or Delhi or the big city?
I think you do get overawed by your senior colleagues whom you follow throughout your life. As a kid, age of 14 or 15, when you really start admiring your national heroes and suddenly you have to share the same dressing room, you do get overawed. Today I can say no, but at that moment, yes, you look up to them, how they're sitting, what they're doing, how they're preparing themselves to play, all these things. But once you go into the ground, I think your natural ability takes over and all these things go on the back seat.
You know, the reason I want to connect that to you, Mr. Tata, you said you grew up, of course, within the Tata culture in a sense. Did you at any stage feel that, you know, look at JRD. Will I ever be the next JR? Will I be ever able to fill his shoes?
Oh yes, that was primarily, that in fact was a challenge. And I had to very quickly conclude that I could never be JRD. I could never fill his shoes. I needed to be whoever I was. And I proceeded to do that. In answer to what you just asked earlier, I would say that the legacy did cost Tatas in some ways that we were disadvantaged in a number of occasions in terms of policy. I would call it favoritism, partiality, whatever. And the only thing I have kept on saying is that not deviating gave me the ability to go home at night and say I didn't succumb.
That's right. I'm just wondering, was there a moment you felt that, you had finally done it your way?
Oh, I felt I'd done it my way. I think that came much, much later.
Because it was a very traditional company. I mean, you're talking about a traditional company which you in your own way tried to change, globalize it, make it a very different company.
Well, in some ways, with the stalwarts that were there in Jay's time, I may never have earned their full respect because I was changing things and they were part of the institution as it stood. So I was in fact the renegade that was changing things which they didn't feel needed to be changed. So we had differences as such in those early
But you
years.
believe a leader must stamp his or her authority at a time like that, that when you take over a position like the chairman of Tata's, you have to do it your way, in a way. You've got to stamp your way of your vision.
I think what one has to do is to do what they believe is right. If it's a change that you feel is the right thing, then you should do it and not compromise on it. Each time that you had to face something that was difficult but you felt was the right way, difficult as it was, the thing to do would be, or the thing I did was to do it.
Kapil Dev, was there a moment also for you when you finally felt, as you said, that in that dressing room for a time you might have been overawed? There were big cricketers when you joined, Bishan Singh Bedi, Gavaskar, Vishwanath. Was there a moment when you felt, I have finally arrived as a test player? Do you recall one moment where you said, I am legitimately in this team?
Yeah, I think when the selector pick you, you are there. You must be done something to make you earn your place in that team. But again, once you start batting, bowling, then it's everything you forget. You just want to play better and you want to prove to, maybe as you said, coming from a small town, you have to prove to the big guys, look, I'm not a cakewalk. I like to stay there, and I like to prove my ability and
Did
talent.
you have to prove a little bit more? You think that because you didn't have any, let's say, any godfather, did you have to prove yourself a bit more?
I think I would say I had more friend because I didn't come from any background. So it was easy for me, for everybody to start liking it. Its liking was depend on the performance. It's not depend on they like your face or they like your mannerism. I think once you start performing well, they start loving you because you are become a value to the team also.
So respect comes from performance.
It's absolutely, I will believe you perform well, the people start respecting you.
In that sense, for you that must have also been there. You've spoken about the old guard, and you represented, in a sense, as you've called it, the renegade of the or the new guard. To earn their respect or to was possibly about ensuring performance. That while you were charting the Tatas on a new way from a traditional company to an ambitious global company, perhaps you were helped also that liberalization had taken place in the Indian economy. So you had to perform.
Yeah, there was a new economic India being formed, and I believe that we would not have been able to be in sync with that if we carried on merely in the traditional manner that we were. But unlike Kapil, who may hit a ball or bowl well, his performance is on the spot. In an industrial environment, you get gauged on performance several years later because it takes that period of time to establish yourself, to make the change, to have the lead times are greater.
But a leader has to have confidence in himself and his team to take those to take those chances, to take those risks. A lot of self-belief.
Yes, and let me with humility say there are many moments when you wonder whether you did the right thing.
That's right, because there was criticism.
Yes,
When you started off, surely there was criticism. but obviously your self-belief must have pushed you forward.
With due respect to Kapil, there's a phenomenon in business called the hockey stick phenomenon, where you initiate something and then it goes down. And so you really have some misgivings as to whether you are doing the right thing. And you have to have the confidence and the tenacity to keep at it till it rises up again.
You know, in that sense, sports is about performing on the day. You know, the moment you started performing on the day and you were an instant success, I've often wondered whether it came all too easily to Kapil Dev. That's why you don't have to worry about all the pressures that many other sportsmen seem to feel, or those in the corporate world. Did you ever feel pressure? I often wondered on a cricket field watching you. You seemed a natural cricketer.
I think the pressure comes when you're more successful. When you're not successful, it's no pressure. You're just going there, enjoying yourself, working there. But once you establish, then every day is more pressure, because expectation around the people, in your company, in your team, around the country, goes so high.
Because, you know, in sports, we have this concept of a natural sportsman. Is there a concept of a natural leader in business or the corporate world? Is someone a natural leader, or is leadership something in the corporate world that you've got to work at, you've got to build at over the years?
In the business environment, people make predictions, people express their views about how stupid you are or how well you will operate. But the jury is out when the results come out. And maybe after a few years, sometimes the people that have been pessimists quietly become optimists. In the area of sports, it's right there. The performance has to be on the basis of how one person performs in the context that he is, and he's the center of that ambition.
But even a businessman now works under quarter to quarter. Your quarterly results. Did you ever feel the pressure that if Tata's has a bad quarter, it'll reflect poorly on my leadership?
Oh yes, and I'm not a great supporter of the quarterly postings, because it gives you a very short-term and a very near-term kind of ambition. And companies are not made on quarters. The companies are made on long-term decisions. Sometimes with bad quarters before the good comes.
While I end this first segment, I want to know this, Kapil. When you started off, did you sort of aim that I'm going to get 300, 400 wickets, I need to score 5,000 test runs? Were there goals that you had set when you started off, or was that just something that on a year-to-year basis you set new goals for yourself?
I think first 3 years you don't set a goal, you just want to play, because that different between corporate world and sports is you just play and enjoy yourself. Here is you want to prove it's the life depend on that. And sports in our time, just to enjoy the sports, because everybody liked to play. But after 3 years, then you set a goal. Okay, look, this is what my life is. This is what I have a talent, ability. Can I achieve this?
There came a time when you wanted to be world number one.
That's where you set a goal. I think maybe I'm putting my, maybe differently. I think they have a goal now much bigger, because now the world is looking up to Tata's. Same thing, world is looking up to the team. When you become a world leader, I think people look at differently.
Did you set a goal at any stage that we want to be $100 billion, $500 billion company? There were goals.
Yes, we did.
And you told the world those goals, or you kept it within yourself and key aides?
Well, they were kept. It wasn't advertised in terms of a goal, but in a manner of speaking, it was publicly known that was a goal.
So goal setting is important. Let me take a break at this point, gentlemen. I'm going to then come back to the highs and lows of your remarkable career, and how do leaders deal with the highs and adversity. Back in a moment, you're watching Leader Talk with Ratan Tata and Kapil Dev. Welcome back to Leader Talk, where we are discussing leadership mantras with two icons of modern India, Ratan Tata and Kapil Dev. Mr. Tata, there are many who believe that your finest leadership moment, in a way, came in one of the country's darkest hours. It was 2611, the Taj, the iconic property of the Tata's hotels group, was targeted by terror, and yet you stood as a rock, both with your employees, many of whom had suffered grievous injuries or were killed. You stayed with their families. The company helped the families out, and in 20 months, the Taj was back on its feet. What was that like for you? Was that a moment where you felt that you really had to stand by each and every member of the Taj?
You know, in those days, those days of enormous stress, one can face a variety of emotions. My emotion at that time was mixed. There's a tremendous desire to stand with our people because the people at the Taj had displayed tremendous spirit, the type of spirit that I could never imagine. At the same time, there was abject anger at this act of terrorism that tried to take us down. You know, they tried to blow up the dome and destroy the building. And with that came a very stubborn kind of view that whatever they did, brick by brick, we'd build back whatever there was, and they could not take us out. They could not consider Bombay to be a soft target. And all of that put together welded me with the Taj employee spirit, with a desire that Bombay should stand up to what this was and could not be considered to be, this terrorist attack could not be considered to be successful.
But it's not just that. You know, I've spoken to employees who've told me the compassion you showed. There was the courage of putting the Taj back on its feet, of taking on, in a sense, the terrorists and sending out a message back to them. But the compassion you showed towards your employees,
I think
is that an essential characteristic, you believe, of a leader?
I think anybody who has any kind of feeling, if he saw this, on the one hand, the spirit that was there, the tremendous spirit, and on the other hand, the misfortune that some of the families had, you couldn't but have compassion. You couldn't but have compassion when an 18-year-old son is killed. How do you can't bring him back, but you can think of things like giving his family his salary till the day of his retirement as though he were alive, or sending someone's young son to school and continuing his education while the father is no longer there. I think those acts, if you don't do, you would never get the spirit that was displayed at that time.
That was quite remarkable. In a sense, Kapil, your greatest, finest moment was very different. 1983 World Cup win. I mean, the image that will always stay in the mind is you running to take that catch of Viv Richards, breaking into a smile, and at the whole country saying, Kapil Dev da jawab nahi. Again, there was a lot of skill and courage that you showed because you were taking on the West Indies, who were the world champions, perhaps the greatest one-day team of all time. What was it? What was it that really you believe was your leadership mantra in that big win?
I think you just play to your ability, and the finest thing happened to our team. We didn't have too many coaches or all the software what today's cricketer require. It's just we were enjoying ourselves. When you start enjoying whatever you do, your performance really lift to the level where you want to reach. I think we didn't take a pressure in that sense because people wasn't expecting, but we start believing halfway through the tournament, yes, this team has. When you start believing yourself, the team has the ability to achieve everything, and that's the way your thought process change and the victories start coming.
But you led from the front right through that tournament, including that remarkable knock against Zimbabwe. How important was it leading from the front? I've often wondered, were you just wanting to set a personal example and then get the team to go behind you. What did you tell the team, for example, on the morning of that match against the West Indies?
I think nothing. We were not. We used to talk about half an hour everything. We'll do this, do that. But actually, when you step onto the ground, it doesn't work out the same way. Planning is there, but things doesn't work the way you plan. But when it doesn't work, what best you can do is just ready to take a challenge at that very moment. What is your body language is most important to for a sportsman. I don't know how the corporate world goes, but body language is important. You have to play till the last minute. You have not to give up any time.
And that's what you told the team?
I think
that you told the team that you've got to look the West Indies in the eye?
I think whatever I remember, it's easy to say that I remember everything. I don't remember anything. I was 24 years old, just a very young kid as compared to other people. But when we got out in 183 and everybody was shattered, because that's not the total, any team would like to see that. But before we enter the ground, I remember I used a very simple word. I said, let's go. 183 is a hell of a total. If you count, it takes long time. Let them make so much difficult so we can say we were the champion.
And that's out. Yes, it's all over this time. Lost his nerve in the end, did Michael Holding, tried to swing that straight ball with the leg. It's another wicket for Arden out and out in Lighty Deluxe. 140 all out, West Indies. And the margin of their victory, 43 runs, as India race into the pavilion with the Prudential Cup players.
I've often wondered, leadership from the front. Does a leader have to lead Mr. Tata from the front? Let me give you an example. I recall when you acquired Jaguar Land Rover, there was a lot of criticism. When you acquired Chorus, there were questions. What is Tata's doing? Traditional steel company now acquiring a global giant. And there was criticism. Yet it's all proved to be a success in the end. Was it again a case of going against the popular opinion? Of saying that, look, everyone else thinks that this won't work. I will prove it otherwise.
Not only major acquisitions, because you could be right or wrong as such. You could be right or wrong with any decision.
Sure.
But I think it is essential for a leader to lead from the front. I think there's another school of thought that you delegate extensively, and that's leading from the front is not your job. But I think it is your job.
Sorry, go ahead.
Revolutions are led from the front. You put your life on the line. You put your reputation on the line in a business sense. You become the role model that everybody follows. You set the tone that everybody follows. You can't lead from the back and leave it to a delegated view. There's no personality then in an organization. I think every single leader has to be that leader, has to earn himself that position to have people follow him or her.
And what happens if things go wrong? What happens if the decisions you take go wrong? Does the leader take the responsibility and is he held accountable for what goes wrong?
I think a good leader would not shirk that responsibility, would take it upon himself or herself as a mistake or as something that he or she will undo or ask for time or patience or whatever it may take. But a good leader an honest leader would never pass it on to someone else.
I'm going to ask both of you in conclusion in this segment, is a leader only as good as his team? If you didn't have 10 other players, you could have never won that World Cup. Cricket is a team game. So you can be the greatest captain in the world, but you need 10 others to perform.
I think sometimes, fine, you need a motivation. It's not always a leader. A leader, I believe, when you're winning, you put the team in front.
When you're winning, you put the team in front. You give them the credit when you're winning.
When you start losing, you take the blame. That is the leader.
Yeah.
Because the next time when you go in, your team is ready to fight for you. You don't win alone. You win with the team and only win it if the team is with you.
But even in the Tatas, you need great CEOs. You've got so many companies stretching across so many different aspects of business. You need those CEOs to perform. Is the chairman as a leader only as good as his team?
I think Kapil said it very well. You really hand the kudos to your team members. If anything goes wrong, you need to accept that you will take the blame and not pass it on to the others. If blame has to be passed on, you will deal with that issue separately, the means of dealing with it, but you will still take the responsibility for what took place.
So, for example, the nano dream. For a while, there were questions over the nano dream. When your project pulled out of Bengal, for example, things looked, there was a huge question mark. Even when you started Tata Indica, there were question marks.
Yes.
At times like that, when things were not going so well, you take the responsibility?
Absolutely. And when we launched the Nano, what did I do? I had the team, or as much as the team, come in and call them all on the stage to share in the glory of what we had achieved at that time.
Right. So that
I think that's called leadership.
Okay. Let me take my final break at this point. When I return, I'm going to end by asking you what you believe are the core values that any leader should always have. Back in a moment. You're watching Leader Talk on CNN-IBN. Welcome back. You're watching Leader Talk with Ratan Tata and Kapil Dev. We've had a fascinating discussion on leadership. Mr. Tata, there's another aspect to leadership, particularly in the Indian context, which is significant, that leaders never prepare the next generation for leadership. You actually prepared a clear line of succession in the Tatas. You retired at 75. Do you believe that leaders must be ready to also let go at some stage?
Yes, I believe leaders should consider themselves human and plan on fulfilling a task and leaving that task to another generation of people.
Because our politicians never do that. They stay on till they're virtually thrown out of office.
When I became chairman, JRD was almost 90, but he was an exception. He was very agile mentally and physically. But we had other directors who were younger than him, but older people who would fall asleep in meetings, who would never leave their offices, and yet they ran major companies. So I decided, who is going to tell you that your memory is failing or that you're physically a bit absurd? That maybe the best thing to do is to create a retirement policy which defines an age that says that 65, you cease to be an executive. For the last 10 years, I've been a non-executive. But at 75, you walk away.
And you think that's important? You think that it's important to also have a life after work, in a sense? I mean, I know both of you enjoy other things in life, so it's important to have a life after work as well.
It's essential to have a life after work, but it's also necessary not to succumb to various forces that, including your own, that say that it's not time for you to leave. The hatchet should fall at that point in time, and you should walk away, hopefully thinking that you left behind a legacy, hopefully thinking that you have made a difference. And you should not be a ghost hovering around that company in that sense. So on the day I retired, I left Bombay House. I moved my office out. And I have many, many things to occupy my mind, and I'm a very happy person.
Kapil, that's true of sports as well. I mean, we've seen it. Let's be honest with Sachin Tendulkar. There are questions, when should he retire? Do you believe sportsmen also need to realize that there is a retirement age in a sense in sport, or do they want to hold on till the very end? True leaders in sport need to retire and give way to the young order?
I think it's depend in sports. Somebody 27 can be too old, and somebody can be 35 is too young because he is agile and he can perform. But again, if you don't let the next generation comes, then you are going to kill one generation. I believe that there is a time when everybody have to say, okay, this is my time. It's not one can say at age of 40 still you can play. It's wonderfully well. But if you retire, the new generation will come, and new generation will have to play better than you and perform better than you. So somewhere everybody have to go at the right time. What is the right time? Either you have a good friends, good family, and your personal greed have to go out.
You mean you know somewhere within you that the time has come?
I think everybody knows that. Sometimes the greeds take over. That is different story, because I don't know anybody's greed. I know my greed. But you have to call it a day. If you call it a day at the right time, you will be a satisfied man. And second thing, I think there is a beautiful life after retirement also. Sometimes you don't understand that. What Ratanji said, it's very beautiful. He's enjoying now. You can enjoy after retirement. Sometimes that holding on as a politician, as a sportsman, as a businessman, like to hold on to another day.
You can hold on to your golf, he can hold on to his fast cars and his planes and all his other interests. So there is life beyond.
You see, may I just say
Yes.
something? I used to be asked that question in shareholder meetings, stay on, and macabre as it may seem, I used to say, I'd like to walk away from my job. I don't want to be carried away in a box.
I'm going to try and conclude by looking at core values for any leader. Mr. Tata, you started today by saying that Tatas as a group believed in certain ethical values when it came to business, and it actually was a disadvantage. Do you believe it's possible to remain ethical when there is corruption all over you, when there is crony capitalism all over you, when companies could benefit by having particular networks with a particular politician? Is it possible to be honest in a dishonest world?
I truly believe that it is possible. If you want to call our world a dishonest world, in 20 years, the Tata Group, operating with ethics and values, went from $5 billion US dollars to $100 billion US dollars in revenues. Maybe we could have gone to a higher level if we had compromised our values. But we didn't, and therefore I think that proves that you can operate ethically, you can operate with values in this environment. You may be somewhat disadvantaged here or there, and that may happen in any country.
Are you saying you never compromised in all these years with the
No.
core values despite all the pressures? Because you've gone public with what happened during the 2G case.
Yes.
And you said that the Tatas were at a disadvantage.
Yes.
Do you believe that at the end of the day, in that battle between profits and sticking to core values, it is possible not to make compromises?
I think it is. It needs a resolve to do so. There's always a softer option, but I think it takes a resolve to do so. Once you cross the line, you've crossed the line. I think it's very important that one doesn't cross that line.
The reason I'm asking you this also, Kapil, is that, we have today a world where while cricket is growing dramatically in this country, there's more money which has come into the game. We've seen with the IPL, there have been the charges of spot fixing. How does a young person surrounded by so much of money really stick to his basic commitment to the sport and not get corrupted?
I think it's a responsibility of every senior player also. There was a time there was no responsibility. Everybody will play their own game. But when the things change, what you're talking about, corruption, spot fixing, I think every individual have to take a part. You just being a Sachin Tendulkar or Rahul Dravid come and play the game. No, your responsibilities increase. You have to teach the young boys. Look, there is a pride to play for your club, pride to play for your country, pride to play for yourself. So even you talk so much about that, still odd person going to fail you. But that's okay. The majority of the people, if their ethics are good and their life is good, that is very good. I'm not going to say we will stop that in next 20 years. Odd person will sell himself. It will happen in the world. It will happen again also. But is majority of the people are good? Are they doing better work? And that is what important to me. Not one odd person in a company, in a police, in a law, in a politician, we can say all are bad. No.
So it is possible to retain, as both of you seem to be suggesting, a certain core values, a system of core values. But, you know, Mr. Tata, if I were to ask you one role model, did you ever have a role model of someone who you said, I would like to be like him, any leader in any sphere of life? Have you ever had a role model in mind?
Not a single person, but I think there have been 2 or 3 people whom I've respected for what they have done, the values that they've displayed, the manner in which they ran their lives.
Like?
One has been Dr. Bose, who died recently. The other has been Henry Schott, who was the chairman of Cummins, and then Lucent, etc. These have been people who have led admirable business lives and have lived a life of respect.
Any role model that you had, Kapil, as someone whom you sort of looked up to always as a leader?
I think, okay, if I put it, your role model keep on changing because you start seeing the world differently. When I was in school, yes, my top guy in the school, he was my role model. Then in cricket, I thought Vishwanath was my role model. Then I seen the world, people who done wonderfully well. I met Mother Teresa. I said, oh, what a lady she is. Then I met Nelson Mandela. I said, these are my role model because I think my growth has changed, my outlook has changed. So my role model keep on changing because growth was taking place. I haven't seen the life what he's seen, so he can put it differently. To me, when I meet people, I admire. I said, man, this is a great person. It's not only sports, it's the person in the world, what he achieved, how he achieved, and what ethic with those achievement comes.
Okay, I'm going to give both of you a final word. If you had one piece of advice to give younger India, we are a country which is young, 60% and more under the age of 35, all of whom are aspirational, ambitious. What's that one piece of advice? You first, Kapil, and then Mr. Tata in conclusion.
Don't lie to yourself.
Don't lie to yourself is your one piece of advice. Mr. Tata, what is the one piece of advice you'd like to give a younger, ambitious, aspirational India?
I would say be proud of your country, be proud of being an Indian, and support what you believe is good that is being done.
And you believe even corporate leaders need to invest in that, be philanthropic in the true sense of the word. You truly believe that a corporate leader is not just about profits, but it is about something much more than just bottom line.
He should be looking at making and having his business make a difference to the consumer of India, to the people of India, a contribution in that sense. It doesn't have to be philanthropic, but it cannot be for just making venal profits.
Well, all I can say, Mr. Tata, is the Tatas have lived up to that goal for several decades now. And Kapil Dev, you redefined Indian cricket in more ways than one. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to have both of you talking on Leader Talk. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.